Hello. Today I'm going to talk about a game I got from my Board Game Geek Secret Santa this year. Um, this one is called Dreadful Circus. It was on my wish list. I think I saw Z Garcia from the Dice Tower gave it a positive review, so I put it on my wish list. Thought I might sounded kind of fun, so I thought I might try it out. So this is the one I'm going to talk about. Let's get started with setup. First thing, each player will take one of these player screens and place it in front of them. It's got some information. It's got a little hint about some things to do here, and then it's got scoring information about how you score at the end of the game. But anyway, each player will take one of those screens and place it in front of them. Now I've had to set up for a 4-player game here because that's the minimum players. I was not aware of that when I put it on my wish list. I probably should have been. But anyway, so I've got to set up for a 4-player game. Now, of course, normally you would be sitting across from each other around a table. You would not be sitting side by side like I have it set up here, at least probably not. But anyway, that's the way I've got to do it playing solo. Each player then takes one of these, what they call wagons, and these have to be assembled when you first open the game, but basically they're just a little box. But the game component is called a wagon, so each player takes a wagon in the color of their player screen and puts that in their player area. So I've placed the wagon for each of the other players here. Each player will take 3 copper coins, 2 silver coins, and 1 gold coin, and place that behind their player screen like so. And I've gone ahead and done that for my other players as well. These tokens are called contracts. You'll take all of these. There's 48 of them, and they're in 5 different variations: Paris, Berlin, Vegas. I think this is supposed to say Prague, but mine says Praha. Maybe that's a a language. Maybe that says that Prague in another language. But anyway, and London. So you'll put all of those in this black bag, as I've done here. I don't know if you can see down in there, but anyway, I've got all those tokens in there, kind of mix them up, and then just set that near all the players. Each player will then take the bag and draw 6 contracts out of the bag and place them behind their screen. So I've done that for each of my players, drawn 6 random contracts from the bag, and then the bag just goes back near all the players. You then prepare your circus deck. You take your deck of cards, take all of the cards that do not have a player count icon in the lower left, like this. That's for a 4-player game. In a 5 or 6-player game, you would add the cards that have the 5+. And in a 7 or 8-player game, you would add the cards also that say 7+. Since I'm only playing a 4-player game, I'll be using just the cards that don't have the 5+ or the 7+, so we shuffle those up and place the deck near all the players where they can reach. Then in a 4 to 6-player game, you'll deal 8 cards to each player. In a 7 or 8-player game, you would deal 7 cards to each player. So let me get that done. Alright, I've done that for each player. This would be each player's hand of cards. They would keep those secret from the other players. Players will want to check their hand of cards they were dealt and make sure that they at least got one of these cards with this tint icon in the upper left corner. That's an attraction card. The other possible icon is this top hat. That's a performance icon. But every player should have at least gotten one card with an attraction icon. If a player did not get that, they would discard their hand of cards and redraw 8 more cards until they get a hand with at least one attraction icon. It would be very rare that a player would not be dealt a hand with at least one attraction icon, but it is mentioned in the rules, so I thought I would mention it. Each player then will choose one card, one attraction card from their hand, and play it in front of their screen, and that becomes their tableau, and that's a power or scoring ability they'll have during or at the end of the game. Alright, so I've done that for all the players. This player played one card to their tableau that gives them one additional VP for each silver they have when you get to scoring. This guy played a card which counts as a card in his collection, and we'll talk about collections when we get to scoring at the end. This player played one that counts as 2 London contracts when you get to scoring. And this guy played one that you gain 1 victory point for each attraction card. Remember, that's these with this icon that you have in your tableau when you get to scoring. The person who last visited a circus takes the first seller icon. We'll just say that's this player. That's in a 4-player game. In a 5 to 8-player game, you would actually have 2 sellers. So the player who is sitting directly opposite the other side of the table from the player who's the first seller would take this token and become the second seller. We'll talk about what the second seller does later at the end of the how to play. Since we're only playing with 4 players, we're only going to have 1 seller. But that finishes setup, and now we are ready to go. So let's talk about how to play. Alright, the game is played over a various number of rounds. The first thing that happens at the beginning of a round is the player that is the first seller. If you have more than 4 players and you have 2 sellers, then each seller would do this step. But they will, the seller will look at their hand of cards and choose one to offer. And the offer, the other players will basically bid on that card in a manner. So they'll choose one card from their hand. So we'll say this guy, we'll say he's going to put this collection card up for offer. So he places it kind of in the center of the play area, or at least in front of his tableau, so it doesn't get mixed up. The offer doesn't get mixed up with cards that are in his tableau. So anyway, the first seller puts a card for offer. If you had enough players and there was a second seller, they would also choose a card from their hand and put that for offer also. The other players will then basically bid on that offer card by placing either coins or contracts or a combination of both in their wagon. Each player must bid at least 1 coin or 1 contract if they have them. Now, if they don't have anything, then they would just bid with an empty wagon, but they must bid at least 1 coin or 1 contract, but you can put more. So just as an example, we'll say this player, he's going to bid 2 copper coins. They'll then cover their wagon and place it up near the offer. The other players will do that as well. So maybe this player, he puts a 2 coin in there and puts his wagon near the offer, and this player, maybe he puts a Paris in there. Remember, you can put a combination. You could put 1 coin in 1 contract, or several coins in contract. But every player has to bid at least something unless they have nothing, and then they would just bid with an empty wagon. Anyway, all players will place the wagons with their bid. Now, if you had 5 or more players and you were playing with 2 sellers, they would also have a card up for offer, and the players could bid on either card, either the first seller's offer or the second seller's offer, by placing their wagon next to that card that they're making a bid on. In a 4-player game where there's only 1 seller, the seller that's putting a card up for offer does not bid. But if there were two sellers, if you had a 5 to 8 player game and there were two sellers, then the first seller would have to bid on the second seller's card. And when players are placing their bids on the offers, they don't have to do it in any order. They just, whenever they've got their bid ready, they place it next to the card they're bidding on. Again, if there's two sellers, either one. In this case, with only one seller, it'd be next to this one. Once all the bids are in on the offers, then the first seller will resolve his offer, and he'll choose one of the wagons. There's no order. He just chooses one of the wagons, secretly looks at the contents. So in this one, he sees, oh, he bid a Paris contract. Now, he can decide to accept that offer, and if he does, he takes the contents of the wagon, puts it behind his screen. Of course, the other players don't know what it is. Then the other players get their bids back. The seller never gets to know what the contents were. So as soon as the seller accepts an offer, that's what he gets, and he doesn't get to see what the other bids are. Now, if he declines that offer, he saw that token in there, and he decides he doesn't want that. He gives it back to the player who made that bid, and then he can choose another wagon and look at the contents of that. So in this case, he sees, oh, a 2 silver. So maybe he decides to take that. So again, he's doing this secretly behind his screen, so the other player's only the one that made that bid knows what it is. So maybe he takes it, puts it behind his screen, gives the wagon back to the player that made the offer, and then any remaining bids go back to the players that made them, and they take their contents back and put it behind their screen. Whichever player, whose bid that player accepted, then takes the card that they won the bid on, and if it's an attraction, they would put it in their tableau. If it was a performance card, then they would it would have some effect you would usually do immediately. If the seller declined all the bids, he looked at each wagon, accepted none of the offers, declined them all, then the card he put up for offer just goes into the discard pile and nobody gets it. If you're playing with 5 to 8 players where there's a second seller, again, the first seller would resolve his offer first and choose whichever bid he's going to accept first, and then before whichever player wins his card takes it but doesn't execute it yet or put it in their tableau yet, then the second seller would resolve his offer by looking at any wagons that were placed at his offer and either accepting or declining them, and then that player, if he accepts a bid, that he takes the tokens from that wagon, that player takes their card, and then both players would resolve their card. But just to go over it one more time, when the seller looks at a wagon, he either accepts it and doesn't get to look at any other wagons, or he declines it, returns that to the player that bid with that, then he chooses another wagon to look at, then he can accept that without looking at what's left in any of the wagons that are left, take it and give the card to the player that made the bid, or he declines that and returns it to the player that made that bid and looks at another offer. He can never, once he accepts a bid, he can't look at any other offers. So anyway, just wanted to mention that one more time. So once a player has won their card and either put it in their tableau, or if it's a performance card, executed it, resolved it immediately, then all players will check if all the players have exactly 3 cards left in their hand. If they do, you go to scoring. Otherwise, you pass the seller token to the player on your left, And then we start with another round with that player that is now the seller picking a card from their hand to be an offer, and the other players bidding, putting item coins or contracts or combination in their wagon to bid on that, and go around until each player, after the end of the offer phase, when all the players have exactly 3 cards left in their hand, then you go to scoring. So by the time you get to scoring, players should have several cards in their tableau. I mean, right now we just have one initial from setup, but by the time you've played through your deck, through your hand of cards until you've only got 3 left in your hand, most players will have several cards in their tableau. And then the first thing when you get to the scoring phase is each player gets to play one of the, if they have attraction cards left in the 3 cards they have in their hand, they can play one of those cards into their tableau at that time. So this guy may choose this card and put that into a tableau. So each of the players can do that with one of the 3 cards they have left in their hand. The next step in scoring is called exposure, where players will remove their screens, and show exactly what coins and what contracts they have behind their screen. Players will then count their victory points. You get 1 victory point for every copper coin you have, 2 victory points for every silver coin you have, and 3 victory points for every gold coin you have, pretty much just as it says the value on the coin. Next, you score your contracts. You get 4. The player who has the most of each type of contract, so the most Vegas contracts or the most Prague contracts. Now remember, some cards in your tableau, like this one, counts as 2 Prague, so this guy would actually have 4 Prague contracts, because this card in his tableau counts as 2, and then he's got 2, so he would have 4. So all the players would look at how many they have of each type. The player who has the most of each type scores 4 victory points for that type. So if this guy had the most Prague, he would get 4 victory points for that. If he had also had maybe the most Vegas, he would get 4 victory points for that, and so on. In the case of a tie for most contracts, the players that are tied would split the points, rounded down. Then players would get 8 victory points for each set of 4 different contracts. So that would be, a set of 4 different contracts, so that would be worth 8 additional victory points. Then since he only has 2 others, that's not a set of 4, so he wouldn't get any other victory points. But if you had another set of 4 different contracts, then you'd get another 8 victory points. Then score victory points for cards in your tableau. Like this guy, he gains 1 additional victory point for each silver, so he would get another 2 victory points. Now this guy, he would gain 1 victory point for each attraction in his tableau. I mean, right now, he's only got 1, so that would only be 1 additional victory point. But really, you would probably have several by this point of the game, so that would score you several more victory points. Then you score points for your collection cards. There's different types, like this one with the clown head. So if you have 1 of a type of collection card, you score 2 victory points for that. If you maybe had both of these, so you have 2 different collection cards, you score 5 victory points for that. And maybe if you had all 3 of these different types, for 3 different types of collection cards, you score 9 victory points. Then at that point, the player with the most victory points wins the game. If there's a tie for most victory points, the player who had this card in their tableau that they win all ties, then they would win the game. If one of the players with the most victory points didn't have that card, then the next tiebreaker is the most attraction cards in your tableau. The next tiebreaker after that is player with the most contracts. And if you're still tied after that, it would be the player with the most coins. And finally, in the very unusual circumstance, you would still be tied after that. The player who has the first seller token would win the game. But that's how you play. It's pretty easy. Why don't we go through a few example rounds. Let me set back up to how we were right after setup. Alright, I think I got us set back to how we were right after setup, where everybody's played one card into their tableau. The blue player here is the first seller, so he's going to choose one card from his tableau to offer, from his hand of cards to offer. Now remember, you're going to get to keep 3 at the end and play one of them, so you probably want to keep one, not offer one that you're going to want to keep till the end. But just to show something different, since we haven't shown a performance card, we'll say he chooses this performance card from his hand, and he's going to put that for the offer. And remember, this guy's the first seller. He's putting that for the offer. So now the other players will bid on it. And what this does, since it's a performance, the player that wins it will do this immediately. Choose a card from any other player's tableau and discard it. The robbed player draws one random contract from the bag and places it behind their screen. Alright, so the green player, red player, and orange player will now all decide what they want to bid for that. So the green player, maybe he just wants to bid 2 copper coins. He doesn't think it's that great a thing to do, so he puts his wagon up there with 2 copper coins in it. The red player, maybe he doesn't even think it's worth that much. He bids a minimum of 1 coin, puts that in there, puts his offer up, or his bid up there, his wagon. And finally the orange player here. Let's just say he decides contracts are pretty valuable. He may not want to bid one like he did in our example. Let's say he's going to throw a 2 silver in there. Alright, so they've all put their bids up there. Again, since we've only got 4 players, we've only got 1 seller. If we had more players, there would be another seller, so players could bid on either offer. So now that all the bids again, our first seller, he decides he's going to look at the orange player's offer. So he takes that behind his screen, looks at it. Now, one thing which I haven't mentioned is that what I guess is a fun part of this game, kind of similar to the game Sheriff of Nottingham, the players that made their bids and put them up there, they'll be trying to convince the seller to look at their offer and that their offer is the best. So they'll be trying to encourage the seller to maybe look at their offer last, that theirs is going to be the best. So they'll be trying to sell their bid to get the seller to take their bid. So anyway, that's probably a fun part of the game which you don't get when you're just playing solo. So anyway, he's looked at this and seen a silver coin. He thinks he can do better than that. So he's going to pass this back to the orange player. So the orange player would go ahead behind his screen, take out what he bid, put it back there, and then just put his wagon nearby. Again, the other players don't know what he bid. He does that all behind his screen. So now the seller, he decides to look at another one of these offers. Maybe he grabs red and 1 coin. Oh no, I should have taken the other offer. No, I'm not taking that. So he gives that back to red. So red would take his coin and put it back in his play area, take his wagon back. So finally he's got green. He takes greens, looks at what that is. 2 coins. Ah, well, crap. I probably should have taken the 2 silver, but this is about equal. So he can either take this, accept it, or decline it, discard this card, and he gets nothing. So he's going to go ahead and accept it. So he accepts green's offer. Green gets his empty wagon back. then green goes ahead and gets this card. Now, if there was another seller, if you had enough players where there was another seller, they would resolve their bid at this time, or their offer at this time. But in this game, we don't have that. So now he's got this a performance card, so he just executes that immediately. Choose a card from any other player's tableau and discard it. So he doesn't like that this guy has this one that counts as 2 Londons, so he's going to discard that. The robbed player draws 1 random contract from the bag and places it behind his screen. So that card gets discarded. Now the red player, since he lost his card from his tableau, he gets to draw 1 random contract, and unbeknownst to the other players, he hides that behind his screen. Alright, now all players would check if they only have 3 cards left in their hand. They all have more than that. So we go to another round. So the first seller token gets passed to the player to his left, which will come all the way over here to the orange player. If there was a second seller, if you had 5 to 8 players, they would pass their second seller token to their left. But now we would start another round with the orange player now looking at his hand of cards and choosing one to put up for offer. So he chooses this performance card. Whoever gets that will get to draw 2 cards from the draw pile there, play one of them, and discard the other. So that's his offer. So now red, green, and blue will bid on that. So red, he's got 3 Vegases. He doesn't think he's going to need that 3rd Vegas, so he's going to bid that. He's going to bid that. And he thinks he'll go ahead and throw in a coin too. So he's going to put that in his wagon, put that up near the offer for his bid. Green, he's not too sure. He just, he lost 2 coins, or, when he made his last bid. He's just going to bid 1 coin this time, so he secretly puts that in his wagon, puts that up near the offer. Blue, he's got a couple of copper coins to spare. He doesn't really want to use any of his contracts, so he's just going to put 2 copper coins in there, and he'll put his offer up there, and then he'll say, orange, you really want to look at mine last. I've got the best offer. Don't blow that. Make sure you look at mine last. I definitely am giving you the best offer or best bid for that offer. And orange is like, I don't know about that. But anyway, he decides, since he's saying to look at his last, he's going to go ahead and look at it first and see if he's full of crap. So he'll take this behind his screen and look at it. 2 coins. No, that's not going to be my best offer. So he hands that back to the blue player. So blue player will take his 2 coins and his empty wagon, and he's out. So now orange player decides he's going to look at red's wagon. So he takes that behind his thing, and he's, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to accept this. So he accepts this offer. So he gets the Vegas and the coin, and gives the empty wagon back to red. And now green just takes his back, so orange doesn't ever get to know what that offer was. It might have been better, it might have been worse. It was actually worse, but he doesn't know that. He never knows what it was. But now red won that, so he gets that card, and he gets to execute it because it's a performance card. So he draws 2 cards into his hand, decides one to play, and discards the other. So we'll just say he plays this one into his tableau and discards this other one. It's a attraction, so it goes into his tableau, where a performance is one you just execute immediately. And now everybody would check if they have 3 cards left in their hand. They've still got more, so the first seller token gets passed now to the left. So now it's red's first seller, and he'll choose a card. So I'm going to play ahead a little bit till we're getting close to the scoring, so we can see how that works. So we're getting near the end of the play phase, so it's green's turn. He's choosing a card to put up. He's the seller. He's choosing a card to put up for offer. He's going to choose this one. Looped wagons. And that one is you gain 3 additional VP if you make a set of 5 different contract types. Well, this guy sees he's not going to get 5 different contract types, so he's just going to put 1 coin in his wagon and seal it up and put that as his bid. This guy, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's probably not going to get that either, so he's also just going to bid 1 coin. I'll put that in here. Now this guy, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he would like to have that. So he's gonna throw a silver and a copper in his and put that. So all right. So green, maybe he looks at blues first. Of course, he would take that and 1 copper. No, forget it. So he gives blue his wagon back. Blue will take his copper out, put it there. So, and then maybe he grabs reds, looks at reds. Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, he's going to take that. The actual better offer would have been oranges, but he doesn't know that, and he kind of liked what red put, so he never gets to know that he turned down. Oh, no, that was orange only bid 1 coin. I already forgot what he bid. So yeah, he did take the better offer from red. So anyway, he took red's offer. Red gets the coin. Red gets the offer. He took red's bid. Red gets the offer. Since it's an attraction, he puts that in his tableau. Now all players check if they only have 3 cards left. He does. He does. He does. And he does. So yes, all players only have 3 cards left. So now we go to scoring. So first, each player gets to place 1 attraction card from their hand into their tableau. So blue, he's going to place this, counts as 2 prog into his tableau. Alright, let's see. That's a performance card, so that can't be used. So green player is going to place this, counts as 2 Berlin into his tableau. Red, 2 of his remaining cards are performance cards, so he can't use that. So his only choice is to play this one. It's Thema Scale, which is a pretty good one, letting him win all ties. And finally, orange, he can't choose this one because that's a performance card. He's got a collection card, but he already has that cone, so that really won't give him too many points. So he's going to take this one, that Gunpowder Parade, that counts as 2 Paris. So that's the one he adds to his tableau. Alright, now we go to exposure, so all players will remove their screens. They can keep them so you can see how to score, but they remove them, expose what coins and what contracts they have. Alright, so first thing, you score points for your coins. So blue only has 1, 2, 3, so 6 for coins. So we'll just write that on his score sheet, 6. Green, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So he's got 12 for coins. Red's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 also. So we'll write that for his coins. And orange just has 5. Alright, next we see who has the most of each type of contract. So blue has 3 Vegas. He doesn't have any Vegas for his cards there. Green has 2 Vegas, but he has this that counts as 2, so he's got 4, so he currently has the most. This guy only has 2, and orange only has 2. So green would get 4 points for having the most Vegas. So we'll give him 4 points there. Alright, for Prague, blue has 2, but he has a card that gives him 2 more, so that's a total of 4. Green only has 2. He doesn't have a card that gives him any Prague. Red only has 1, and orange has none. So blue will get 4 points for having the most Prague. Right, Paris, blue just has 2. He doesn't have a card that gives him any. Green has 2, and he doesn't have a card that gives him any additional. Oh, well, he does have this. After exposure, choose a type of rainbow bridge, a type of contract. This card counts as one of that chosen type. So maybe he's going to choose. He should have chose right after exposure, but we'll say he chose Paris. So that counts as him having 3 Paris. This guy only has 2. He doesn't have a card that gives him more. And this guy only has 2. Oh no, he got another one that gives him 2 more. So he actually has more. So he's got 4 Paris. So orange will get 4 points for the most Paris. Alright, that's all blue has. That's all. Well, no, green has 2 Berlin. And red here's got 1, 2 Berlin. And orange just has 1 Berlin. But red has this card that lets him win all ties, so he ends up winning that even though he was tied with green because he has that card. So he gets 4 points for the most Berlin. Blue has no London. Green has no London. Red does have 1 London, but orange has 2 London, so he'll get the 4 points for that. Alright, next you get 8 points for each different set of 4. Blue does not have any set of 4. He's got, Paris, Prague, and Vegas. That's all he has. So he doesn't have a set of 4, so he doesn't get 8 for any of that. Green has Berlin, Vegas, Prague, and Paris, and he's got 2 of each of those. He has actually more Vegas, but that won't give him. But he's got 2 of each of those, so it's going to be 2 sets of 4. So that'll be 16 points for green. Let's see about red. Red also has 2 sets of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, that's not a set of 4. Because those are the same. That's not 4 different ones. So he's only got 1 set of 4 different ones. That's not a set of 4 different ones. So he only gets 8 points. Red gets 8. And it looks like orange, he only has 1 set of 4 different ones. This gives him 2 Paris, but he's already got Paris, and that's not another set of 4. So he only gets 1 set of 4 different. So that's 8 points for him. Alright, victory points for cards in your tableau. Gain 13 victory points if you have contracts of only 1 type. Well, he doesn't. He's got all different types. This one gained 1 additional victory point for each silver. He has none, so he gets no victory points for that. Gain 2 additional victory points for each gold. He's got 1 gold, so that gives him 2 victory points. Alright, this guy, he doesn't get anything from cards. This guy gets 2 victory points for this. Gain 3 additional victory points if you make a set of 5 different contract types. Can he do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, he can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he gets 3 additional victory points for that, and 2 victory points for that. So that's 5. Gain 2 victory points for each set of copper, silver, and gold. this one. He's only got one set, so that's 2 more, so that's a total of 7, and half a victory point for each copper, so that'd be 1, 2, so 7, 8, 9. That's red. If I added right, I may have not added right. He gets 1 victory point for each attraction in his tableau, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's all he gets. Alright, now victory points for your collections. He has 2 different, so as you can see here, a set of 2 different collections is 5 points, so he gets 5 points for that. This guy just has 1, so that's just 2 points for green. This guy has no collection cards, and this guy has 2 different, so that's 5 points for him. And that's it. And if I added correctly, blue only got 17 points, green had 34, red had 33, and orange had 30. So the winner would be green. So that's it. That's how you play the game. I will say I only have played it once before right now, played it solo, and obviously it's terrible solo because you know what all the players are bidding and what cards everybody has, so absolutely cannot recommend this solo. Hopefully with the American Thanksgiving holiday coming up this week, I have some family coming into town, so I'm hoping we can play this and I can try it multiplayer and see if I enjoyed it better than I did playing it by myself, because I did not enjoy playing it by myself. I did see that the designer had some unfavorable things to say. I guess after he completed his design, the publisher changed some things that he was not happy with. He thinks the contracts are, scoring is weighted too heavily toward contracts, and he thinks there's a few cards that are in the game that just need to be removed, and a couple other things that he said to make the game better. That may be so. It does seem to be possibly weighted toward contracts being the best thing to get after just 2 plays now. I can't really say, but if the designer said that, it's probably true. But anyway, I'm just going to play it as the rules that came with it say, and hopefully like I said, I can play it multiplayer this week and decide whether it's something I want to keep or not. But I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.